Merry time of day. Some time ago, I stumbled upon what some people think may be Norway's first piece of guerrilla embroidery, also known as protest embroidery. It was stitched during the Second World War while Norway was under German occupation by teacher and crafter Caroline Moe. Moe would work on the tablecloth while attending meetings, even when people who sympathized with the occupation were present, and could have easily reported her if they had realized what subversive text and intentions her cloth was hiding. The first sentence of her stitched poem reads, "Against dark forces, stitch by stitch, is stabbed." And I can only assume that the double meaning was incredibly intentional. Not that finding subversive and/or overt forms of protest are particularly relevant to our current timeline or anything. But that got me thinking about crafts as protest in other shapes and sizes. Spoiler alert, that topic is so big that I could not possibly cover it succinctly in a single video. From an embroidered confessional about the mistreatment Elizabeth Parker received at the hands of her employer in 1830, to Annie Parker's hairwork samplers done in her own hair and other materials during her many stays in prison in the late 1800s. In many cases, these stitched examples give us a glimpse into the lives of these women in a way that has not been written down or recorded anywhere else. But honestly, it is the many modern projects that captured my heart the most during this briefest of dives into this enormous subject. Swear words among dainty flowers, body positivity, and suffragettes unifying under a cohesive color scheme. Like the Embroidery Collective in Mexico, who stitch by stitch on soft handkerchiefs tell the heartbreaking stories of women who have been the victim of gender-based murders or extreme violence. The project has stitched around 350 different stories so far and helped raise awareness on the issue. Another project, called The Red Dress by artist Kirsty MacLeod, features embroidery contributions from 380 different people from 51 different countries on the same magnificent garment. One of the contributors, an anonymous Iranian refugee who claimed asylum in the UK, cited guilt and helplessness at not being able to return to Iran to join the protests for freedom and democracy, but that stitching about the struggle on the red dress helped her feel a sense of connection and purpose with the people protesting. And all of these people cite, in some way or another, how the act of stitching itself, slow, deliberate crafting done one stitch at a time, helped them cope with the challenges they were facing, how it helped with the feelings of overwhelm, disempowerment, and depression that comes with being faced with injustice and oppression. This should come as no surprise to fellow crafters in the audience, but there is research to back up these claims. From the repetitive nature of many crafts that can act as a form of meditation, to the tactile feedback of handling precious textiles, yarns, or other craft supplies, to the fact that we have to pay at least some attention to what we are doing with our hands, which helps ground us in the here and now. research on craft has been shown to stimulate areas in the brain associated with problem solving and adaptability, as well as cultivating resilience and reducing stress. So not only can we make our voices heard through our crafts, but it can also help us deal with whatever we are protesting in a positive manner. But I didn't realize how much all of this would inspire me personally until I found the book How to Be a Craftivist by Sarah Corbett. And for that to make sense, I need to provide some context. All around us, at least where I grew up, I feel like there is a strong narrative around volunteering. Volunteering helps people feel a sense of belonging. It is one of the things that can really help someone when you are depressed by helping you focus on something outside of yourself. It is supposed to be rewarding, energizing, meaningful, all the positive descriptors. And I heard all of those things and I failed. Time and time again, I tried volunteering for things that mattered to me, and I just couldn't keep up with it. I volunteered for a soup kitchen, cooking free meals from food that grocery stores were throwing away every week. I tried volunteering for environmental charities and signed up for, information stands, writing articles, and preparing for protest marches. I tried being a homework helper with local students. I tried helping at a small organic co-op shop. I even tried helping digitally from the comfort of my own home. And time again, I would manage maybe 6 months to a year before I had burned myself out so thoroughly that I just had to give up. And it felt so devastating. It felt like a personal failure on my part. I was not managing to show up for the things I cared for my community, and I was not feeling any of these mythical benefits of volunteering that I'd heard so much about. At the end of each attempt, I would just feel utterly drained, and it would take longer and longer in between each time I dared to try any volunteering again. And it is really important to me to emphasize this, but my burning out was through no fault of the other volunteers. They were warm, genuine, and welcoming, but I will admit, a lot of the time I did feel like, when two people meet and both people are perfectly nice and friendly to each other, but you just don't have the vibe. Through no fault on either person's end, you just know that you are not going to be best friends, and that's okay. There are other people out there who you will find that you will vibe with. A lot of the time, volunteering at these different organizations felt a bit like that. Everyone was nice and friendly and welcoming. They just didn't feel like they were my people most of the time for whatever reason. So when I found Sarah Corbett and her book How to Be a Craftivist, and one of the first things she writes is that this is activism for introverts, I was immediately intrigued. Like me, although Sarah has a considerably longer and more impressive activism track record, Sarah had been burnt out by more conventional activism work. There are just too many injustices in the world for any single person to be able to care about and try to do something about or be angry about all of them at once. There is just so much. The first question, of course, to make sense of any of this should be, what is Craftivism? And we could start at the beginning and talk about how it is a term coined by Betsy Greer in 2003, who defines it as a way of looking at life where voicing opinions through creativity makes our voice stronger and our compassion deeper. And the last part turns out to be really important. But even that is pretty vague and nebulous in defining what craftivism actually is or does, which is kind of the point. Like, she has stated herself that part of it is that each person makes it their own. Honestly, I find it difficult to explain succinctly, so it might be better to start with an example. Many moons ago, a living wage foundation was trying to start a conversation with an industry leader about them committing to pay their workers the living wage that year and every year thereafter, as the living wage calculations get changed and updated. The hope was that if they could convince the industry leader, other companies would follow suit as well. But the CEO was not at all interested in meeting with the foundation, and they found all their emails unanswered. That is when the foundation reached out to Sarah and her Craftivist Collective to see if they could open up a conversation about the topic with this business. After considering the issue for some time, Sarah got to work. They recruited several craftivists and matched each one with a specific board member of the company, trying to find some commonality between crafter and board member, such as an interest in gardening, economics, or being a first-time parent. Even better if the crafter also fit the target demographic of the business. To show that they were not boycotting the business, they bought handkerchiefs from them, and each crafter was instructed to think about how it felt to be the person they were matched up with and what challenges they would face in their role as they stitched them a heartfelt message that they could both display with pride and that would encourage them to use the power that they had for good. They also hosted what they called stitch-ins, where rather than traditional activism sit-ins where you park yourself outside a business and protest a practice, they would be more inviting, bringing picnic blankets, tea, muffins, and again, dressed like the target demographic, would let people come to them to ask questions as they crafted various projects, allowing for a more organic flow of conversation where they could educate the customers on their living wage project without anyone feeling shamed or admonished. It also allowed them to gather data they could share with the board members about how their customers also cared about the employees being paid a living wage. And when the annual general meeting rolled around, several had bought a share in the business, allowing them to attend and vote as shareholders. When it came time to give each board member their personalized gift, rumor had already begun to spread, and they were excited to receive them and to speak with their specific crafter. At the end of the meeting, they had managed their initial goal, which was to spark a conversation that would allow members from the Living Wage Foundation and the business to meet. The craftivists' work was not done though. They continued to nurture their individual relationship with their board members through emails and updates, and at the next annual general meeting they showed up again and their conversations went on for even longer than the first time. This example, which you can find in much more detail in Sarah's book, illustrates several things to me. One is the really effective use of positive psychology. No one likes to be told what to do or that they are harming others or do not care about their employees. By encouraging people to use their power for good rather than telling them off for not doing more already, Sarah and her craftivists nurture a relationship that she herself calls being a critical friend rather than an aggressive enemy. These kinds of messages are often quite challenging for us to compose as well. It is much easier to shout, "Don't do X," but it is a whole lot harder to figure out a way to say, "Let us work on this hard thing together," as it applies to whichever specific project or topic to hand. Another thing that appeals to me about their method is that they focus on individual relationship. One craftivist, one board member. Not a group of craftivists on one side and the whole board on the other. Personal, one-on-one, and they worked slowly over many years, showing the board members that they were really serious and cared about this project, but also avoiding burning their members out by not trying to do everything all at once. I believe in the power of personal relationships to begin with, but perhaps especially in this day and age where sharing a post or a message or a video with hundreds of people is often just a click of a button away. This also appeals to me more, to be honest with you, because it feels like something even I could manage, like it's bite-sized enough that it seems achievable. Just grow a relationship with one person for the cause, whatever you are trying to talk positively about and encourage them to look into. You know, something achievable to those of us a bit more on the introverted side, and most of us don't like being confrontational to begin with. So this thing can really help for a lot of us struggling with that kind of thing. And lastly, and most importantly, the Craftivists succeeded where traditional campaigning had already failed. And that is not to say that Craftivism isn't somehow better than traditional activism, but it is different and it appeals to different people. So as a complementary method, I think it has the potential to do a whole lot of good and to reach people that other activism can't normally reach, because let's face it, a lot of activism and activists do have a reputation for being a bit aggressive and abrasive. So this kind of work might appeal to both from the activist side, you know, the craftivist, and the person they are targeting. You might be able to reach further by, you know, tapping into a resource and a type of person that wants to help but haven't been able to feel welcome in the traditional spaces that activists inhabit. So it is sort of just an additional option or tool in the toolbox, if you will, and maybe, just maybe, a way of working that is less aggressive and less loud, that may appeal to and work for people who perhaps cannot or would not go to loud, cramped marches for whatever reason they might not be able to. Or people like me who want to work on causes they care about but haven't quite found a space where they feel like they can do that yet. I don't know, I might be projecting, but I imagine several of my viewers might feel similarly. Thank you for watching this more of a stream of consciousness video than anything else. If you are similarly enticed and would like to know more about Sarah and the Craftivist Collective and their work, then I have the wherewithal to relate to you. You can check out Sarah's book, How to Be a Craftivist, or even check out their YouTube channel, the Craftivist Collective, if you wish to stay within these video format. Not sponsored, I really want to share her work with you all because I think it is really cool. Links to that and all the references for this video is, as usual, available in the description box below, so you can peruse them at your leisure. I have also made a channel for Craftivism in our friendly little Discord server. I don't know what we will do with it yet, but perhaps we can brainstorm some ideas together as a community. In any case, I hope you, like me, feel similarly inspired, and maybe we can think of something to make the world a tiny bit better, one step at a time. Bye! It took me longer than I care to admit to think about what I wanted to work on as I was talking through this video. It really is no joke that positive messaging is a lot harder than negative ones, especially if you want to be in any way specific. In the end, I landed on I woke up today and chose hope as a play on Bernadette Banner's iconic I woke up today and chose depravity. But I wasn't just happy with the text itself. I wanted to somehow encapsulate just how nebulous and difficult it can be to choose to hope. It is much easier to give in to despair and negativity. So I chose to hide the hope in the background. So dotted in French knots that is more than a little challenging to make out the word itself. I apologize for anyone, dyslexic or otherwise having vision problems. This is not the easiest project for you, so I'm sorry about that. But that was kind of also a little bit the thought, is that you kind of have to work for it in a way. You have to work to find the word. And I got feedback from people I was showing it to that it was indeed quite difficult to read, which was, it was supposed to be readable, but not too difficult. And I put it on a canvas of various patchwork pieces of scraps because, again, hope is fragile and it will slip through your fingers if we aren't paying attention. Choosing hope and to hope that a better world is possible in the midst of challenging times especially, I think is a really, really brave thing to do, especially when coupled with a bunch of tiny steps taken together to actually work towards such common goals. Thank you. Hi, darling. Would you like to do the very end with me? Hi. Can I interest you in some higher up snuggles? Oh. No? Not interested? Shoulder time? Postscript here at the very end. Per viewer requests, I have built a little shop on my website. You want to come down? Yes, I have built a little shop on my website as a decentralized way that you may show support for my work should you wish to do so. I have put a few old patterns up there as well as offers of correspondence and hope to upload many new patterns as we make videos, such as the embroidery pattern I have been working on today. The shop operates on a sliding scale, pay what you can price model, so you can contribute as much or as little as you are able to. The only exceptions are the personal cards and letters, where I do need to set a minimum ask to cover, stationery, postage stamp, and time spent writing each one. Link in the usual place should that be of interest for you. But for real this time, bye!